What's up, YouTube? WK Dad, Team DKF. Let's talk about getting better at the game again. We're going to be talking about misplays, and the obvious definition of a misplay is a wrong play. A play you shouldn't have made, a mistake. Um, Now, a lot of the misplays that we make are obvious. You know, Summoning a Thunder King against your opponent's Thunder King in four back rows. That's a mistake. Obviously, they have an answer to your Thunder King, and you wasted a summon. You're down advantage, and they still have their Thunder King. Those are the kind of things that in my opinion, are obvious. The problems, though, the main things we want to work on are the misplays that you don't realize until a turn or two later. You know, Going one for one dandy, summon your Tengu, going balls to the wall in your first turn just because you happen to open Tengu and one for one, and not baiting out your opponent's max C or anything ahead of time. Or if they didn't have the max C, thinking you set up in good position and the game's just started, you can't even attack that turn. You know, Thinking that you could set up with your Stardust and extra Tengu and maybe the Librarian, and think you have the game locked down, and your opponent just wombo combos you. That's kind of exaggerated, but there's some people who just feel that if they can set up, that they can be good, and they don't realize that their opponent hasn't even used any of their power cards, or they can respond in kind with their own one for one play, or they could just sit there on a Reaper because you didn't blew your whole wad on your one for one Danny play setting up. They set a Spear Reaper, and now you have no outs to the Reaper. And then you draw pass, draw pass, draw pass. They have 6 cards in hand, 5 back row, and you're just sitting there like, oh my God, sooner or later it's gonna happen. So that's the kind of things that we need to work on. One of the ways I suggest you work on it is do what I started doing recently. I've started going back, looking at some of my older duels, even some of my most recent duels in the past month or so that I've recorded, and just kind of watching myself and seeing the plays I made, and then questioning myself, so why did you make that play? You didn't have to make that play. There's no reason to summon the Thunder King, even though you had field presence with your Tengu and your Librarian, into his 2 back row. That obviously was a torrential tribute. Even though I had the Solemn Judgment, why would I burn the Solemn Judgment on the torrential when I could have just kept poking, and then after the torrential was gone, summon the Thunder King, and then have Thunder King and Solemn Judgment to stop their big push. That's what I mean by a misplay in hindsight. So that's something you can do. Just record yourself, watch it, and then question yourself. Something else you could do is sit down with the game against a player that you respect, or that's a higher caliber, higher level in the game than you, and then play them, and then have them critique your plays. Because there's a lot of players that are willing to, sit down with you and say, why did you make that play? They'll just stop you in the middle of the game and say, why did you do that? They're just interested in seeing why, and then they can tell you, so you could have waited. Even though I could have the answer, but maybe I'm not. That one answer is 1 in 40, 42 cards. Don't think that the person always has the answer, or don't think that they won't have the answer. When I was at YCS Kansas City, when I sat down with Tyree Tinsley and Thomas Vo, they did that for me. I sat down with them, played a couple games, and Thomas Vo kind of backbenched me and said, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? You're in a stronger position. There's no reason to push right now. You have complete control. So those kind of things help. And finally, I feel the most important thing is to focus. Even in the casual games, I see people with their headphones, or they're talking and chit-chatting, they're texting, not paying attention to the game state. And those are huge contributors to misplays. And people say it's just a game, but I'm the kind of person, I don't do anything. I don't do anything unless it's for a reason. I play the game for a reason, to have fun, and because I like it. And I take it seriously enough that I want to get better. If you want to get better, then obviously you have to take it seriously. At least serious about getting better. You know, if you just want to just play for fun and you don't mind losing often, then, you know, that's your thing. Even if you win a lot. But for me, I want to get better, so I'm going to take this seriously, and I'm going to focus. I'm going to continue to do the things I can to sharpen up my misplays. So what I would like for you guys to do, oh yeah, I have my notebook. I haven't seen you guys' videos with your notebook. What's up with that? Show me your notebook. See, you know, this is the same notebook from the other video. But what I want you guys to do is just comment down below. Tell me about your misplays that you recognize in hindsight and how that affected the game. You know, not so much bragging about, oh yeah, I was up +6 and then he came back +2 and then I still scraped him. No, I mean, seriously, you know, misplays that you didn't recognize at first, but a turn or two later, you're like, oh, why did I do that? You know, those are the things that get you. Those are the things that cost you games. Those are the things that put you on a bubble at a YCS. Those are things that prevent you from topping events. That's what I'm interested in seeing. That's what I'm interested in helping us to overcome. So share those with us so we all can learn. WK Dad, and I'm out.